Hola, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Arizona, the show of Mezcal yet again. Today's guest is the face and traveling salesman of Mezcal Vago, Francisco Terrazas. Francisco is a bearded gentleman. I, at one point, thought we couldn't get along. I thought he was perhaps a bit surly. But you know what? Sometimes it's just me. He's a lovely, lovely guy, and we have a great chat about a lot of things. A couple of things in common, both having grown up in Arizona partially, but mostly it's about the mezcal. And there are some insanely poetic pieces to this conversation, and I hope you guys really enjoy this conversation with Francisco Terrazas.
Question a lot, especially at I would get it a lot at Peshawar because people would, inherently ask about, because that was a bottle that had been aged in clay for 30 days.
Yeah.
Right? Or 31.
Oh, the blend that you guys had, right?
Right. And people immediately ask, like, oh, how does that affect it? And then people started asking about how, aging in glass and how does that affect it? And all I could really tell them was that I dramatically saw the bottle change over the year and a half that we had it. From the first bottlings we got, it was pretty raw and pretty raucous.
It's really tight and kind of thin. I don't know why that is though.
But then towards the end, it really smoothed itself out.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what it is, but I mean, I've had some longer aged mezcals. I think Sanziscan is the name of the company. I think they're out of Michoacan.
Uh-huh.
But most of their bottlings have been aged on the order of a few years in glass before they bottle them and release them.
There's just something special that happens, and I to be honest, there's a lot of faith that things are just going to be what they're going to be. There's a lot of things that happen when you talk about bourbon and you talk about mezcal.
Oh, yeah.
That just fucking happen that people don't really have a scientific explanation for.
Oh, yeah.
There's this air of magic that occurs, and that's the thing with mezcal specifically.
More so than others, I think.
Yeah, I can't explain it. All I know is it's frigid at first. And it's not willing to open up, but you just give it some time on the shelf, and it just absolutely expands, becomes rich, and it's far more lovely than it ever was.
I think so. I think aged spirits. This is actually what kind of got me into the unaged categories. I found more to learn and explore within the unaged category versus something like a heavily aged bourbon or something like that.
Right.
They progress over time, but I feel like that wood has had such an influence that is going to be what it's going to be.
Totally.
Right. Whereas agave spirits are much more, when they get put in bottle, I feel like they're much more in their adolescence.
Absolutely. It's a strange thing, and I think that that's a really important distinction to make. So I love bourbon. I'm sure you love bourbon as well. I love mezcal. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that the maturity, not even the literal maturation of the spirit, but the barrel is what gives life to the bourbon.
Absolutely.
Not the and then people can argue, and that's fucking fine. I don't care, right? But the distillate, a wheat distillate isn't that exciting. It's not riveting. It's not dynamic, right? And so the barrel is what, in those seasons, that's what really gives it its flair. But mezcal, the thing that I appreciate about mezcal and distilling agave spirits in most cases, but especially mezcal because it's more clay still, it's pot, is that there is no interference from man. It is just the approach to fermenting and distilling, and then you get the spirit. It just is what it is.
And that's one of the things that I think is not necessarily, by the people who know, I think it's really appreciated.
Yeah.
But I was in Seattle recently, and I had brought a bottle of the of Vago's of our Blanco y Negra, which was the black label that had gone to the New York market.
Yeah,
Nicholas bought at PM Spirits, and that was a blend of two different agave Americana varietals, the Blanco and the Sierra Negra. But the Blanco, and I didn't realize this until after I'd followed up with Judah, but that Blanco was a plant that was over 45 years old.
Those particular plants harvested?
Yeah, Tío Rey's grandfather had planted them.
Oh, man.
And then just kind of left them in their own devices out on the hillsides till they were ready. And it was like on the order of, I think, 45 years, I think is how old they were, roughly.
Insane.
By the time they'd been harvested. And that's something that people don't really appreciate until you tell them. Because, I mean, we don't normally put that on our bottles.
No, it's not necessarily important, but
at the same time, like we're talking about how the wood is what gives life to a bourbon or an aged rum, for example, not the cane variety, or the wheat variety, you know. But I mean, when you think about an annual crop and year after year after year, there's less. I feel like there's less to that particular year's crop, versus an agave bottling where it's, you know, decades old. And I think that's one of the most fascinating and I don't know, for lack of a better term, romantic things about mezcal that people don't really realize. Like there's an entire life cycle of that plant.
You don't. So big difference. So you, let's say, get a bottle of 25-year-old bourbon, right?
Yep.
And again, the original spirit is relatively lost at that point, or it has been masked by the seasons and the barrel itself. But mezcal, if you think, like, that's why I really love Tepestate, is because it's such an old varietal and it matures. So
they're usually around 25 years.
Exactly.
You know,
and older. So you, in a sense, like, you step into a history book. Like, you are transported to these other kinds of seasons, these other years. You basically are consuming a plant that, in this case, if you're talking about the Blanco, is that what it's called? Yeah, that has existed longer than you have.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
It has absorbed all of those experiences in a pure sense. Just the seasons, the cold, the hot, you know. Right. And you taste that. And again, man, like, people say, well, we nerd out about mezcal or we get too detailed about it. No, fuck that. Like, that is a special spirit because in no other category really does that ever exist. Where else do you have some fruit or some grain that's 40 years old? You don't. There's no way.
The only thing that I could think of that would really be more impressive is when you see these, like, 1,500-year-old trees, like these cypress trees, right? It's like, you're never going to be able to drink that cypress tree. But that thing has been around since the time. But you look at it and you're like, Jesus. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's the closest that I think you can get from as far as consumers go to, as far as anybody can go to really, like, drinking what was going on, like,
drinking history.
Yeah.
And to think that that'll cost you only, I mean, I'm not trying to say that $100, $150 isn't expensive, but to think that you're drinking history for $100 to $150, I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
I'm totally all right with
that. Put it in a years to dollar like ratio, right?
Exactly.
Versus like
that's a hell of a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even get that yield on my COD, right? Like, it's horrible. But that's the thing about mezcal, and that's kind of what makes it romantic. And we'll talk about more what drew you as if it wasn't just self-evident, because mezcal to me is like self-evident. It's not a struggle to try to love it, right? It is that beautiful. And then working with Judah, obviously, an amazing guy with great personality and stuff in the industry. A gem, for sure. A fucking surfer gem. Which you don't get a lot of the, you know.
I know, I've watched Point Break, doesn't that? Surfer like, dirtbags.
I mean, Patrick Swayze is kind of a gem in Point Break. Like, he's, you know, you're like,
yeah, but then he's got his 4 other guys.
Those guys are doofuses.
Yeah, man.
total fucking doofuses. So you made a trek, and this is, we were chatting a little bit, kind of, you know, before you came into the show, and then we've been chatting to try to arrange everything. But so you've had a national tour, it seems like. So you're home base.
Get in there, yeah.
Yeah. Are you home based in Houston, or are you in
Luckily,
Mexico?
yeah. I still get to be based out of Houston.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you went and took a trip to Maine. And there's this riveting tale that I really would like to regale.
This poor kid. He didn't know what the hell to do. It was Providence, actually. It was Providence. Okay. Yeah, I was out in Rhode Island. You're talking about my yeah. So I had gone to it was like my first real day on the job, as far as, like, you know,
touring
talking to people and other like doing the, like, quote, ambassador thing or whatever. And I was in Providence. We were doing a small, like, dinner at the restaurant called Rancho Grande, and we were just finishing up. And I was talking to a really nice gentleman who had run a retail shop called EVO in Providence, right next to Johnson & Wales. It's really, really cool shop. I went in there a couple days later. But anyways, I was talking to him, And all of a sudden, I just heard this ruckus behind us, and I see everybody.
Can you describe the ruckus?
So it was just like I was facing towards the kitchen, right away from the street, and I heard some crash behind me, and it didn't sound too serious. But then I see it was like watching an action movie where you just see everybody like stand up and their eyes get real big.
Right.
So I knew something was going on behind me, and I turned around. I didn't see anything. It looked totally fine, but then I started talking to people around me, like, "Did you see where the guy went? Did you see where the guy went?" And so go outside, and this poor kid, my rep who had brought me to the restaurant, had parked right in front of the restaurant. And apparently it was like 5 p.m, and some drunk driver had pulled an illegal U-turn and just completely destroyed the left side of this kid's car.
Shit.
So took off, and Marcos, the guy the son of the people who run the restaurant, like, he's a fucking badass, man.
Yeah.
He's always posting these crazy pictures about him doing like these Spartan runs in Fenway and stuff like
Feats
that.
of heroism.
Yeah, he just like jumped in this person's car and just he did not know, but this guy was like, "Hey, I saw the guy take off." He's like, "Fuck it, let's go." So he just takes off after this guy and just drove off in the stranger's car and like ran the guy down.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was remarkable.
And he found him, you said?
Yeah, he found him, man. And the guy had gotten in trouble for having an open container in the car before, so that was a fucking mess. But my poor rep, man, he was just like, I didn't know what to do. I just ended up hanging out at the restaurant, which was great. It's like a little family-run place. They just like gave us food and shit all night. But this poor rep, like, his car was just fucking destroyed. Like, cracked his axle and just didn't know what to do.
Horrible,
yeah, so I was just like cruising around Providence for the next couple of days by myself, which was fine. Yeah. But I just felt so bad for this guy because he was just like trying to do his job.
It's a hell of a way to punctuate your beginning of your U.S. tour.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, man, you fucking guys in Providence are fucking out of control, man.
Who would have thought? I mean, not to have any kind of assumptions about Maine or Rhode Island. Yeah. But like, that's some deep shit already.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, that happens around this part of around Providence.
Really?
I was like, I didn't think that happened anywhere in Rhode Island.
Pedestrians beware? Is that
I guess so. Jesus Christ, man. Like, it could have easily been much worse, but...
Well, it's a nice rite of passage, if you will.
Yeah, I was like, all right, it's not going to get a lot crazier than this.
It can't get worse than that.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it could get worse, but that's pretty bad.
That's pretty bad. As far as, I mean, luckily it wasn't like... I would have felt even worse if I was cruising around with like John Garrett or something. Jesus. You know what I mean?
I know. That'd be horrible.
His old little Mini Cooper would have stood a chance. Though.
Would have flipped around. Well, so before you got into this whole thing, getting into the booze industry, working at Pastry, working at Fino too, I've talked to so many of the peers, and it's almost like doing what is it? When you find out your family tree. Yeah. So like starting in a particular spot and then working your way out. And I'm finding like there's this genetics or this molecular foundation for cocktails and stuff in Austin. But where did you grow up? Are you from Austin?
No, I'm from the Southwest. I have actually lived pretty much my entire, aside from living in Austin for 3 years, I've lived within 5 minutes of Interstate 10.
No kidding.
Yeah. Grew up in Tucson. And now I grew up in Tucson. I was there all through college.
Did you go to school in Tucson?
Yeah. I went to University of Arizona.
Oh, cool. I lived in Scottsdale for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude.
No shit.
I remember going to Arizona State, Tempe, right?
Yeah, Tempe. Yep.
And I was a young kid. I'm like, dude, everybody looks like they're having a lot of fun here. I want to go to college here. And that was like maybe 10 years old or something. Is the Arizona experience in college all that fun?
Looking back, I don't think it was, but I was in such a haze at the time that I thought it was a blast.
Yeah.
But now I look back and I'm like, oh, there's a reason they argue, like, you know, Arizona State and University of Arizona are like, well, at least we're not that big, you know, that big of a piece of shit school. And it just kind of goes, and I'm like, that's not really the competition you really want to be having between.
That is not a good competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Mean, but you know, you're fighting for straws at that point, grasping for straws and shit. So
well, yeah, you're in the middle of the Southwest. There's not a lot else going on.
There isn't, but the weather's interesting. I always liked it. The monsoons. I talk about that a bit. Like I love the
people are always like, oh my god, it's so fucking hot. I'm like, yeah, it is. But if you're ever there to catch like 2 rainstorms in a day, and they both clear out by the afternoon. It's like 75 at night. Yeah. And just like the storms. Oh, it's fucking gorgeous.
It is. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I took Rachel back there for my fiance back there recently. And her, you know, it was her first time back west. And she loved it. She thought it was one of the most beautiful places she's ever seen. So,
it totally can be.
Yeah.
And you know what's really interesting to me too? The thing that I've never seen anywhere else. I've lived kind of all around the States. But that the way that the water is just engulfed and sucked up you can't even tell it rained. It's a massive hole in the desert, and it sucks all that water in, and then you none the wiser after it rains. It's like incredible thing.
Yeah, but it's kind of like it really is kind of fascinating the cycle of like water and rain in the desert, because it's so parched, and the monsoons can be so inundating that that flash floods are a genuine issue. That I remember the year I was born is one of the worst floods that the city's ever seen. Like all the 83? Washes. Yeah, 83. Yeah, all the washes.
Did math real quick there, by the way.
What's that? Good job, man. Fucking smooth as hell, man. The floods there are huge. Like you always see people people talk about those floods in what was it? 2012, the Halloween floods here in Austin, right? Like that happens pretty much every other year in Arizona. Yeah, because of the monsoons and stuff in the summer. Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
How was it? I loved being close to Mexico. That was my first experience of having that kind of hybrid where there's a lot of Hispanic people.
I was listening to you and Javier talk the other day on one of my drives, and I was like, oh yeah, I totally remember going there. Yeah.
See, he had a much more rich experience, if you want to call it that. But how was it growing up in Tucson? Is it diverse?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's really, really interesting. I would say it's probably more so than I think I've found here in Austin, just because of the proximity to the border.
Sure.
And Texas has definitely had more of a American influence, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and then you talk about Austin, you get lots of students and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But Arizona is still very, 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 very Hispanic, I think, in culture and nature.
Did you have what you would call like a traditional Hispanic?
Kind of. Yeah. It was. I find myself. I think that's one of the reasons mezcal has become so important to me now, is because I think I really, I kind of lost it a little bit growing up, because I grew up with my grandparents. My mother was in the picture, but she was going to law school when I was in my young adolescence.
Yeah, so I was in Arizona.
Yeah. I would spend the day with my grandparents. I would fall asleep at their house. She would pick me up at night after school.
Working hard.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking busting her ass. So I grew up with my grandparents. That's kind of where I learned to speak Spanish. And then going to school, I grew up going to in kind of like the accelerated program. Yeah. So there wasn't a lot of like neighborhood kids that I grew up with,
right?
That were in my class,
you're excelling academically. Yeah, in a sense, it alienates you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And my classes were much more diverse, and maybe that's why maybe that's part of the reason I think Tucson is very diverse, because I grew up with a very diverse group of kids, and like going, to different families' houses and stuff like that. And I think I got a much better cultural experience growing up in Tucson, and less kind of ethnocentric, I guess, than I think a lot of kids really did. Whether like kids who grew up in the, because I grew up in the far west part of Tucson and spent a lot of time in the southern part of Tucson, where it's very, very Hispanic. And if you're going to neighborhood schools, that's 90% of what the student body is. But I had always kind of trekked across the city to go to school, so I got a very different experience growing up. So it wasn't super, super steeped in Hispanic tradition, in my elementary and middle school days.
But there are elements just around.
Oh, right? Yeah. Like, for example, my entire family grew up in about probably 3 square miles from like my
no kidding.
Yeah, my great-grandparents' house where my mother grew up was no further than about 3 miles from where my mom still lives today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I grew up in a very, very, very small pocket. So
encapsulated in family. Easily around family all the time. So where was your dad around? Was he in the picture?
No, my dad wasn't really in the picture. He went back to California when I was very, very young. Yeah. And I never
just really... kind of jet.
Yeah. His mom, I think, had gotten sick or something out in California, and he split with my mom to go take care of her back in California. So.
Understood. And you were pretty young at that point, I guess?
Yeah, I was like not even maybe 2 years old when that all went down. So yeah, I was born in D.C. because my mom was doing a fellowship, and that's where they split up. And then my mom came back to Arizona to keep going to law school. Yeah. And I grew up with my grandparents. That's kind of where I picked up a little bit of Spanish.
I grew up to a single mom as well, for a long time.
God bless them, man.
8 or 9. Yeah, it's a different experience. But do you feel like, and I talked to Justin Lavenue about this too yesterday, like, do you feel like it gives you a better sense of manners and a better understanding and like sense of empathy for women in general? Because it did for me. I respect... if maybe it was different, I would treat women in a different way. But like now, I just revere them so highly because of being raised that way. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I would. No, I think that's an easy yes question. Like, of course. Like, I don't think. I mean, granted, that's definitely based. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of single mothers who have terrible relationships with their kids.
Oh, sure.
You know, but you know, if you're blessed to have one of the good ones, I think. Well,
she's really driven, obviously ambitious.
Oh yeah, smart, you know, she's got. You know, she's been in the legal profession since I was a kid, and she's incredibly smart and incredibly driven and hardworking. But, you know, I think it was a mix of growing up with a single mom and then also, like, being raised by my grandparents or that previous generation, you know?
You get respect, you get chivalry, you get a nice blend of all that stuff.
Yeah. I really grew up as kind of like, at school wasn't that much fun in elementary and middle school. I was kind of a big nerd, and probably part of it was because I was raised by a single mom. Like, I was allowed to be a little bit nerdier.
What made you a nerd at that point? Like an interest in Magic the Gathering, as I found a lot of bartenders are into.
Yeah, no, I wasn't that. I was actually, I've definitely been to a Star Trek convention.
Oh, that's...
Yeah. I definitely have. Yeah, I definitely dressed up as a Star Trek character.
No kidding. Old or new?
Halloween.
Original?
Next Generation.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
Patrick Stewart. Yeah, Patrick Stewart era.
He is a looker, though.
Still. Oh, yeah. Dude, it's so regal, too. Like that voice. Oh,
yeah, dude. Have you seen Blunt Talk?
I've watched a few episodes, but I don't have Showtime. But I've like kind of caught a couple of them here and there.
It's interesting. But like, I immediately heard an interview with him recently, and I was like, huh. He talks about like really tough times with his dad and stuff. I'm like, this is really. He's a gentleman, great background in theater and all this. But like, I said, what's the one question anybody thinks of it with Patrick Stewart? I think it is, what does Patrick Stewart look like with hair? And so that's I went and I found a picture of him with hair. I'm like, geez, he was a dapper son of a bitch.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's insane.
I'm sure, man.
It's almost unfair.
You can't be that good looking bald and not have been good looking
with hair.
Like with hair.
Yeah,
right.
It's great. It's
like, I don't think you're very lucky if you get bald and be like, you actually look a lot.
He's
better
maybe one
now.
of the only white dudes that looks good bald like that. Bruce Willis, kind of.
Yeah,
but there's like 5. That's it. Like, that's about it, you know? So, Star Trek conventions, just having a kind of a
purple
curiosity
like purple sweatpants. My mom would let me wear, like, purple sweatpants, and I'll wear, and, oh, God, it was, I remember one year, I don't know how she let me do this, just because she wanted me to be myself. I think one year I went to middle school for Halloween as, like, a court jester. And she, like, made me tights to wear, so I was, like, the one kid in middle school, like, tights. And she would just let me wear that shit and not think anything of it.
That's amazing, though.
Yeah.
It's like no boundaries. But it's
exactly.
Not like disrespect. It's just no creative boundaries.
Yeah.
Just do whatever the fuck you want to do.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that Adam Sandler movie, Big Daddy.
Oh, yeah.
Where he lets the kid call himself Frankenstein. And
why not?
Yeah, fuck it. Just be yourself, man. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like you turn out, you weren't, seemingly you were a smart kid, a nerdy kid. You didn't cause a lot of problems.
No.
It's not starting fights with people.
No, she was actually, that's one of the things I think, it could have easily gone south with me. I had some cousins growing up who were always around because we both kind of were taken care of by our grandmother, all of us were taken care of by my grandmother. But they kind of were in and out of trouble when they were growing up. My mom was very adamant that whenever they took off like down the street, you know, I had to stay at Nana T's house while they kind of went off down the street and played. So.
Gotcha.
I think it paid off, and I hated it when I was growing up. But yeah, she was very diligent to me.
No, but you don't get it sometimes when you're younger. Like, but I want to do this. Like,
yeah, exactly. Well, they're going down the street. I have to sit here and watch fucking The Young and the Restless with Nana, you know. But they get to go take off.
General Hospital.
Oh yeah, man. It was Price is Right. Young and the Restless, and then something else the other day, and then something else after that.
Days of Our Lives.
I think it was Days of Our Lives. Yeah. I think so.
Man, I can't. I'm not bullshitting. I never watched that stuff, but I always loved the theme music.
Oh, it's so dramatic, man. And then like
Days of Our Lives.
Yeah, and then you have like the intros of everybody doing their like dramatic turn when the name comes on the screen. Yeah.
And what's the term in acting? Oh, indicating. Like everybody indicating, like nothing else. You know? But so you did well in school. You're in these accelerated programs. I guess the equivalent of AP. That's what we call it in Texas.
Kind of. Well, it was always on the like. I grew up in kindergarten. I went to kindergarten across the street from our house growing up, and I think my it was like a cousin or something, a family cousin that was my kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
But she wanted me to repeat kindergarten.
Why?
Because I guess she thought I had an attention deficit problem, I think.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I was told that, but now I feel like everybody uses that. So I don't know what the issue was, but for whatever the issue was, she wanted me to repeat kindergarten, and then my mom wasn't having any of that. So she went in to talk to her, and then she had me, and then I took like some tests, and then I got put in like the elementary accelerated program.
Oh, there you go. So it was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
They were willing to just paint you in a corner as a kind of a stunted kid.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that was kind of at the birth of all that, you know, like attention.
It's like, ooh, I've heard of this. It's just like Vice News. Oh, I've heard of Vice News.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to use that all the time for everything.
Yeah, I was watching Vice News. I was reading. You haven't
Vice News.
Yeah, Vice News, man.
You see that guy butt chugging Vice News? Must be like the mecca of news, you know.
Obviously.
But, so when you get into you said university.
So yeah, I did that.
Right?
When, you know, got shipped across the city for like elementary school, and that's kind of where I started branching out a little bit. And
did you take like any particular interest in any like English or history, or just you liked it all?
I liked it all, man. And I just did it because that's where I was told, you know, that's what class I was told to take or whatever. And I wasn't like, I kind of just cruised along until it wasn't really until probably high school that I really, like I switched high schools in the middle of it. And I think that was kind of a turning point for me, like actually like being engaged in things and kind of taking things seriously.
Yeah. I had to do that in junior year, and it was just, it's really difficult socially.
Yeah. You know. It was hard socially. I was really like the high school that I started at was really easy. And then I was in with a great group of kids. I was doing like swim team and all that shit. And then I transferred to my other school. And it was kind of interesting because I was back with kids that I'd gone to elementary school with.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So that's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. It was good, but it was a much better academic program. And so I think I didn't do very well. Like I think I got like a B minus average or something. But it really taught me how to think, and that's kind of where I started actually kind of branching out academically and kind of actually like genuinely taking interest in stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
The depth of it, like getting down to a molecular level. That's something I've noticed about that I don't notice about a lot of people necessarily, but you go deep. Like you'll find that there'll be a concept. You talk about fermentation, for example, right? You go deep. You want to understand it at the deepest annals of that concept. And I think that's really admirable,
I mean, I don't know. I don't really like asking. I hate wondering why. You know what I mean? Because then even if you get the next one answered, you're going to have the next why.
There's always a why.
Exactly.
And that's actually, to me, that's the pursuit of life, is to keep asking why.
I think so, yeah.
Not in an annoying way, you know, but like just there's always another question.
God,
I wish there always
sounds like Patrick Stewart talking to me over here, man.
Stewart, something. But that's it. It is, and that's the pursuit of life, and I think that's a great endeavor, and I think that's something I really respect about you. So the high school experience kind of forms and it gels, and then what did you end up going to school for at University of
honestly,
Arizona?
man, I went to University of Arizona. I was halfway between just like a nerdy guy and a bro, because I was in like a shitty frat and. Like not even.
Were you living on campus?
I was living on campus.
So was that?
But it was also like it's University of Arizona. It was actually like Revenge of the Nerds. It was like a shitty little frat that nobody else would want to. Like you would tell people, and wait, what? And they would think they would think it was like a Hispanic frat or something. Like, no, it's like an actual one. But there's
what is
five
it?
of us.
Delta. No, what's the fraternity?
What is it? Is it Delta,
right?
Or yeah. I should
God
be.
Damn it.
I feel so embarrassed.
That is inexcusable for me.
Yeah.
I need to know exactly. So anybody, if you want to correct me or tweet at me, let me know what fucking frat that was in Revenge of the Nerds. I think it's Delta.
But that's also a sorority, so I'm not sure.
Shit.
Anyways, but I should know. It was filmed on the University of Arizona, so I should know that. But anyways, but it was like
were you focusing on school though too?
Not really. I was just kind of cruising along and enjoying and just kind of hanging out. Didn't really know what I wanted to study at all, like a lot of people. You know, just kind of looking at it, and it was really intimidating to pick something. I out of high school, I had gone to the University of Arizona by default because I was really on the fence. I almost actually went to Annapolis. I was really close to going to the academy.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and I was like, they gave me a call, and I was thinking about it for a couple of days. And when I was 17, I wanted to be like a pilot. Yeah. And when you're 7, like the minimum commitment, the billet was 10 years if you want to be a pilot, if you even got accepted.
Right.
Of course, I thought it would obviously be accepted. Why wouldn't I?
Why not?
Right. I'm 17.
Pilots. I'm a pilot.
Yeah. No, whatever. But the commitment was 10 years, and it was really, really intimidating when I was like 17
Yeah.
to be 20, and I'm 32 now, but to think
a
about being
long
27,
for sure.
before I actually have
You had
my
hardly
life
even
back.
lived 10 years already.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're 17.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, that's more than half my life.
Yeah.
That I would be losing. But I was like, so at the last second, I decided not to, and at that point, I'd gotten into some other schools, but we just couldn't afford it. So I ended up at the University of Arizona. So
was it kind of an interesting experience because you'd been living at home, so living in a frat, do you feel a little bit larger sense of freedom and stuff being out there in the
yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of continued to a negative. Rachel's actually my fiance actually probably talks to my mom more than I do now because I've kind of like I was at home till I was 18 and I hardly ever saw them and unless they like dragged me, threatened to like I don't know, they would always threaten me with different things. If I didn't come to family
guilt's a strong
dinner.
one.
Oh my God,
it's really
absolutely.
Good. And if I understand correctly, Hispanic family guilt is even more effective.
Oh yeah,
in my family.
Yeah, they don't fuck around.
No,
yeah, they're real serious about it. Just always like how much they miss you, and you haven't talked to your grandmother, you haven't talked to your sister.
Right.
Yeah.
You know who would like to talk to you? Your sister.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's so suggestive. It's so
but yeah, like it was cool. It was cool to branch out and be at home, but it didn't really feel like a completely different world because ultimately I was 10 minutes away from home.
Yeah.
Just
enough space, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I went to school at another school. I went to school in Flagstaff for like a semester. Came back to Arizona.
NAU in Flagstaff?
Yep, NAU Lumberjacks, yeah. That was really cool. Froze my ass off. Wasn't really for me. It was like at schools at like 9,000 feet or something. Yeah, it's at 8,000 feet or something.
Beautiful up there, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I was walking out of class one night and I just slipped on a piece of ice and fucking cracked my ass so hard.
Oh, shit.
And I just lay there for like 5 minutes. I was like, I don't belong here.
Take me back to Tucson.
Yeah, take me back. I think it's like 65 in Tucson right now. Take me back home. So I came back and graduated with a degree in marketing and international business.
No kidding.
And studied some Spanish. Yeah, and then I got out.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did the 5-year plan.
I did the 6, so you're better off.
Okay. Well, it was, you know what? I mean,
I'm not even a doctor, goddammit. I spent all that time. So,
I think it did me well though. Like, I think I got all the ridiculousness out of my system for the most part in college, and then I had some I did the business fraternity and had some friends who worked at. Oh God, don't do this. I ended up working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car for like 2 years.
They had so many programs. They want to get those college kids.
Oh, they recruit so hard, man.
Predatory.
It's like the military recruits hard, and then right under them is Enterprise.
Enterprise
Rent-A-Car.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, and I did that for like 2 years, quit, hated it, ended up taking a restaurant job, and that's kind of how I fell into the whole thing.
What were you doing at the restaurant?
I was just being a server, man.
Yeah.
I remember I'd studied marketing in college, and I volunteered for the culinary festival.
Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
the company that I worked for did all the marketing for the culinary festival.
What kind of restaurant was it, by the way?
It was just like a it's called Pastiche. It's like new at the time, like New American.
Oh, okay.
Was
there like cocktail program at all? Wine program?
Not really, but they had a really extensive wine program, but it was mainly a domestic focused wine program. Like they actually had a bottle, like a retail shop attached, and things like that.
Yeah.
But I remember I had spoken to the owner one time, and I think he was given a radio interview, and somebody asked him what drink he likes, and he said something about a Manhattan.
Yeah.
And he was a great guy, and I kind of admired him. So like I wanted to emulate Pat Connors, Tucson. If you're hearing this. This is for you, bud.
I'll find you, Pat Connors.
But yeah, I was like, oh, Pat drinks Manhattans. I'm going to start drinking Manhattans. And I would order Manhattans at the time, and my friends would always give me, because Tucson's a kind of relatively small town.
Yeah. So
they give me a hard time for ordering something that came in a fucking cocktail glass.
Really?
And I stuck with it just so I could say, fuck you, I'm going to drink this.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly stubborn.
You're rebellious.
Got from my mom. But yeah, so I just kind of started drinking Manhattans, and from there, I started studying. I would get off from there. I would get off from the restaurant, and I was living downtown at the time. I would get off from the restaurant, go home, change, and go around the corner of this tiny little cocktail bar called the Red Room, which is no longer open, which was attached to a 24-hour diner called the Grill. It was like a Tucson institution.
Oh, cool. That's bound to be still open, the Grill?
The Grill, no. Actually, it all went down in a very suspicious fire.
Interesting.
A couple years after I left town, I heard. So yeah, but it was a really great space. It was like a tiny, tiny little cocktail bar. It couldn't have been more than like, maybe 300 square feet.
Wow, that's insane.
It was there was like 4 tables, I think, and then like 4 seats at the little cocktail bar.
Yeah.
And then up front, they would somehow squeeze in like a little musical act.
Oh, nice.
From time to time. So it was a really, really tiny.
Good learning ground.
Yo, it was great, man. I would go in there, I'd actually read, and then finally they were expanding their hours, and they just kind of got to know me, and they asked me if I wanted to bartend. And I said, yeah, sure, absolutely.
So you just as a patron, having that experience, like we know you serve, we know you're in the industry. They just ask you to do.
Yeah. I had gotten what's Dale DeGroff's second book? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like not the one with the arm on the cover, but it's like a little bit newer one. But anyways, I brought it in there one time, and I was fucking trying to show off and like said I knew this. I'd seen this one drink somewhere. Can you guys make
it? It's like reading Infinite Jest.
Yeah.
Like, hey, have you guys read this book?
Yeah,
it's really big.
Exactly. I was like, hey, can you guys make this? And they're like,
that's
no.
how coffee shop dating works in Austin, by the way. Oh, you're reading Dubliners? Oh, well,
oh my God. Yeah.
so cool.
Shit.
Yeah.
It really is. I've seen that actually happen at a couple of shops.
Absolutely fucking happens.
But
you got the gig, and they asked you to bartend.
Yeah, I ended up bartending there for about a year, almost a year, and then I moved out here to Austin. I chased a girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
Who actually she lived at Anderson Mill Lane, so around the corner.
No shit. Does it bring back bad memories being in the
No, not really. It brings back bored memories because I come out here after my shift.
Well, so you met her out there?
I met her in Tucson.
Tucson, okay.
Yeah, we
was
were
she
all
from
part of the
Austin
same
or just moved?
We were all part of the same social circle, and she actually got a job promotion, which brought her out here.
Oh, okay.
Because she worked for Apple. Actually.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I very seldom talk about this place, and I won't talk about it. But what was her name?
Her name was Holly Stanley.
Interesting.
Yeah,
not familiar, but
no, she did. She was like a liaison, I think, between she did something where people would call in with questions, like tech support for apps.
Yeah,
I think
pro apps.
She would kind of be like the liaison between.
No kidding.
The people who could answer the technical
questions. So she got a good gig. You're like, all right, let's do it. You come up into Austin.
She moved. She moved. We had broken up. She moved.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, miss you, etc. She's like, okay.
Forlorn.
Forlorn. Yeah, exactly. I was heartbroken at the time and had moved. And so we ended up getting back together. She was gracious enough to say that we'd get back together. And then I came out here. And
what year did you come into Austin?
Oh, I don't remember exactly. It must have. I started at Pheno November 2011, so it must have been around like August
2011.
August 2011, right? Yeah, okay. Summer sometime, I think.
Yeah.
So
you do that, and what did you have any sense of what you wanted to do when you were here?
No, but I knew I had bartended, and I knew that Austin was like the scene to be, and I was. I guess I'd be like a little Bill Norris fanboy because I just like he was the one guy that I had read about that whose name I recognized. So I just kind of went to whatever place that I had seen him working at and started turning in resumes. And I kept in contact with.
We're both Bill fanboys, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Membership cards.
Yes.
I ended up at Annie's Cafe down on Congress. For a few months, and then kept in contact with Brian Stubbs, who was a GM at Pheno at the time, and that's kind of how I fell into working at Pheno.
So what were you doing at Pheno?
I had been serving. I was trained by the worst training shift I've ever had because this person was so checked out, and it was actually my fiance at the time, Rachel.
No shit.
Yeah, Rachel.
Was she working at Pheno too?
It was like her last day.
No kidding.
Or something. My first day was like her last day, and Brian put me to.
So you just touch and go.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. She trained me at Pheno, and I ended up being a server for probably like 3 months.
Yeah.
And then I ended up jumping behind the bar with Josh, I think in January or something like that. Yeah, because I'd always just kind of been talking to him, we were very, we get along very well. So I would always just kind of shoot the shit with him whenever there wasn't a lot going on. And ended up jumping behind the bar with him. And then, I don't remember the time frame, but I think he left not too long after that, maybe 3 or 4 months after I started working. Yeah. And then I took over the bar program and was there until I moved to Houston in April of 2014. So
you were bar manager at Pheno?
Yeah. I was a bar manager for like a year and a half, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Any notable people kind of run through there? Because when I've done these interviews, I've interviewed Bill now, and Stubbs will be in hopefully next week.
Cool.
And Josh and all that. It seems like it was an amazing bullpen of talent. And
I missed it all except for Josh. I was lucky enough to like work with Josh and kind of see how he builds drinks and like how he thinks about drink program, which I think definitely left a bit of a mark on me for sure.
Yeah.
But like I know that Houston had worked there for about 15 minutes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think Adam Bryan might have.
No kidding.
I know the Gentle Giant worked there for a
Mr.
little
Dressel,
while.
yes.
Yeah, Mr. Dressel worked there.
Are you quoting me? Because I call him the Gentle Giant.
Yeah. This is all I have to listen to when I'm driving around Texas.
How
Mike.
boring it must be to see it in person. Like, God damn it, it's all the same monotonous shit.
I know. I thought you were going to have a green room and shit.
No. Well,
No.
I mean, there's a green wall. For those of you that can't see it, it's a nice green. I like this green.
No, yeah, everybody had been through there. I was fortunate enough to know that everybody, like, people geek out, some really do, some pretend to geek out about sherry, though. But we, like, people would always come in for happy hour, I think, was a really good opportunity for me to really meet people. Like, I know Brian and Bill had come in several times, and just things like that. And bartenders would already come in passing, whether it was to talk to hang out with Josh or just to kind of check things out, even after he had left. So cool. I got to know everybody through Fino, but I had worked there after they had pretty much all moved on. Interesting. Yeah.
So you finished Fino. What drove you to Houston? Because Pastry War was the gig you took, right?
Yeah, Pastry War was the gig. Oh, I worked at Midnight Cowboy for a.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Was Rachel there then too?
No, she had actually moved on. I don't know.
To Key, maybe?
Maybe to Key, I think. Yeah, to Key, or she might have been working for Virtuoso at the time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
she worked for Virtuoso for a little while. But that's where I actually got to work with Brian a bit.
The Gentle Giant.
Yeah, the Gentle Giant.
I will visit fucking Georgia to go talk to him.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Hugely influential guy for me specifically too.
Oh, yeah. Such a nice guy. And then I worked with Javier a little bit too. And that's where I actually got to work with some of the other bartenders that I think still here in Austin.
Probably a lot of the guys. But there was something. How do you feel about Midnight Cowboy? I talk about it as it was some kind of zeitgeist of the scene at the time, that it is some kind of creative mayhem but beautiful utopia that's there.
Yeah, what does everybody call it? The stop for wayward bartenders?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what it always has felt like. Is like there's always some group of people hanging out there who are very good at what they do and very intelligent and know a shitload, whether it be about cocktails or just worldly people. So I think it's always a good stopping point for a little bit. And I was there just to kind of make some extra money because I was headed out to I was going to Spain, I think, so I was just there for like some extra spending cash.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Spain for like a temporary thing, for long term?
I was just going to learn about wine for a little bit.
Gotcha. Because you mentioned something about buying a flat there. It was really cheap.
Oh, well, now that's the dream. That's the future Vago Europe.
Oh, yeah, Vago Europe.
Yeah.
Headquarters in Spain.
Yeah, the beachside house in Galicia. So
I'm pretty sure Judah will be like, well, you just live in California, Francisco, and I'll go to Spain.
Yeah,
go surf on
it. Apparently he saw me post that and he sent me something back. He's like, this is the one I've been looking at for a year. So he's already got it on. Yeah.
So he's already on.
He's already got it unlocked.
Go figure.
Yeah. So yeah, I was at Midnight Cowboy for a little while, which was awesome. Like I loved it. It was a lot of fun. The only thing that I missed was in engaging with people across a bar.
A different dynamic for sure,
yeah,
right? Absolutely. In a sense, like there is a little, and I love Midnight Cowboy, but there is just a little bit too much privacy, right? Because I get my little booth, great. Yep. But sometimes I want to chit chat when I haven't been drinking, when I'm not 3 rounds in. I just like talking to you guys. Yeah. You know? And there's something that's a little bit different about the dynamic there. So I totally
get what you
same thing
for being a bartender. Yeah. I love Javier, but I get tired of looking at him for 20 minutes. I kind of want to step out and go talk to a guest.
Like, all right, I get it. You have a mustache, an amazing mustache. Yeah. What do you want me to do about it, Javier? Yeah.
So yeah, but it's a very unique, interesting dynamic, and it was a lot of fun. I definitely learned a shitload while I was there. Yeah. And then so I finished that up and finished Fino right about the same time, I think. Or no, I was done for about 6 months at Cowboy before I left Fino. But just getting to know Bobby through social Bobby Hugel in Houston.
Yeah, how is that? I haven't met Bobby. We've had exchanges as many do.
Yeah.
But I guess do you view him as the icon that a lot of people do? Like whether it's in the mezcal world, whether it's the running the bar world?
Not necessarily, and I think that is because over the process of the couple years that I've been in Houston, I've gotten to know, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad that I don't work at Peshawar anymore, is because I value my friendship with him a little bit more. Like I've gotten to become really, really, really good friends with him.
Yeah.
So for me, he seems like a much more just real, normal person than this personality that everybody seems to know him as
the kind of outspoken iconoclast in the industry.
So
you get the behind the scenes stuff, like the guy.
And like I get where that comes from.
Yeah.
But that's surprisingly, like with most people, I think to a certain extent, that is what's driving them. But I think with him, it just seems to be much more of just genuinely sticking to what he feels is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And if it causes some uproar, I think that's just kind of, just part of it. Yeah, just part of it for him, for sure.
So you guys started kind of develop. Did you reach out? Did you reach out first? Or
I reached out. I think I reached out to him one day because I was asking him what agave books to read.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we started kind of chit-chatting, and we started a message, like a Facebook,
thread
Facebook
or whatever.
Thread,
Right,
thank you.
Right.
Yeah, about which books and which articles to read. And
the nerdiness running through to your adulthood.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm not exempt from that either. But yeah.
And like, like which academic book should I read, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And and then he had mentioned, I'd seen him post something. He was looking for a bartender, and I just let him know like immediately. I think I was like the first person to respond, saying that I was interested. And then he got really busy, and I went to Spain, so it wasn't probably another 3 months before we talked.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it had developed. The situation had changed to such that he was looking for a general manager at the Pastry War.
No kidding.
Yeah, and just kind of so I had been down there for a night, I think, just to hang out when he was first looking for a bartender to kind of meet everybody and hang out and see the operation. And then a few months later, I think we were talking, and he ended up needing a general manager, and I kind of felt like I'd done everything I could really do at Fino. So,
So that was you transitioned into that role then.
Yeah, straight away.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
is it really? And I regretfully, I haven't been to Pastry War. I've been to Anvil and some of the other spots in Houston, but I've got to go back and definitely talk to Bobby and Alba and stuff. But what makes the Pastry War special? Because I just look at the menu and I get that it's special.
Right.
The menu is educational.
The menu itself is very educational. But honestly, and that's one of the things that really blew my mind, because it was not at all what I had anticipated. It leans itself much more to being a place that is about people having a good time.
Yeah.
Which, true to form, like I think that's ultimately what every concept that group has opened has really at its heart been about.
About the people.
Whether it's under the guise of music like Nightingale Room, or culture at Julep, or cocktails and Anvil, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the bar just became more about a space of people having a good time. I mean, and granted, a lot of that comes from the fact that it was like 85% of our business was done between 10 and 2 on Friday and Saturday.
Oh, no kidding.
Like just being downtown and being associated with a group, it automatically draws a crowd.
Sure.
But it was such a dichotomy. It was two completely different animals during the week, where it was very much a scholarly place. Like you would come in, 60% of people would get like a flight or something, or just try a few mezcals. And then on Friday and Saturday, you would be doing,
transactional,
$8-9 grand,
crazy
on a Friday, Saturday night between 10 and 2.
Is that a hard contrast to keep up? Because you are teaching and then you're functioning, right?
And that's something that we have always worked on. That's something we try to explain to people really, really, expressly when we were interviewing them, was that you have to be able to play. You have to be able to be content when it's slower, talking to people, engaging people, and you have to also thrive and be incredibly hospitable with people when, you're doing, X amount of drinks on a Friday or Saturday.
You got to be good at 2 languages.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And just you have to be 2 different people during, in the course of 1 week, which can be really difficult and really trying. But I think the group that we had was really, really good at it. It's still really hard when it's super slow, like on a rainy weekday, for people to really, really be enthusiastic and have a lot of fun. But the staff came so far from when we first hired them, and just being able to explain to people what they were drinking and engaging people. It was really great to see the bartenders learn and be able to share that. And then it was incredibly gratifying to see people come in and really engage the bartenders and listen to what they were saying, and really just really hopefully fall in love with the category a little bit,
Yeah.
even a fraction.
You make it
of
easy.
the level that
I mean, the
had.
captain's list, that menu is just brilliant.
Yeah,
The way it's organized. I mean, I even learned a lot.
And the staff, they got really great at like, okay, somebody picked something off the list, and then, well, here, try this next, which I think is maybe even more important, because everybody's going to try at least one, right? That's what you're in for. But to be able to then take somebody and be like, well, why don't you try this next, and then try this, and get them to keep going down that hole, I think takes a certain skill.
Well, no, that's there was this, man, and I'll go back to my Best Buy. I worked at Best Buy for a long time, and there was this term they used, and they used it in the capacity of being able to upsell on stuff. And it's not that, right? Because you're really trying to share this passion of mezcal, passion of agave at Pastry War.
Yep.
But there's this term called smart friend, and that is fucking what it is, right? Like, so you order this thing, and you're like, you know what? I know about this stuff. I'd love to share it, and I'd love to suggest the next drink for you. And that's a brilliant way to approach spirits, because you guys aren't making, you do make cocktails there, but for the most part, you can taste. You've got so many wonderful spirits just to taste on their own,
Oh yeah,
and that's the difference, really.
Yeah,
it's like a library.
But even if people didn't want to do the mezcal thing, they just want to do the cocktails.
Yeah.
That's totally cool.
Yeah.
But we tried to have a real cultural root in even the drinks themselves. Like it's like one drink that I remember is like one of my favorite. It was a Mai Tai riff, and instead of regular orgeat, we had been using pepita, like pumpkin seed orgeat.
Yeah,
and I'd seen other people like experimenting. I'd seen other people experimenting with different orgeats. So, but I hadn't really wanted to do it. I got this really great Yucatan cookbook, and they talk about how in the Yucatan they actually make a marzipan, but they use pumpkin seeds.
No shit.
Yeah, and
that's
there's
brilliant. That's brilliant.
But then it gives us like a little vehicle, and that was why that job. I think if you bartend at the Pastry War and like are trying to come at it from a creative perspective on the drinks, it's one of the most challenging jobs, because you have to be able to link that to something culinarily relevant in the culture of
something
Mexico.
Not referential is not the word I'm looking for, but something classic that's rooted in the culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because that's a brilliant thing that, man, there's a shit, I won't even talk about Microsoft because it's a little bit of a wormhole. But there is paying reference and paying homage to classic elements of design, and classic elements of flavor, and in this case, a particular geographic area of which there are classic flavors that are there. And so for some reason, if you were to go and take Japanese flavors and use those for cocktails and making syrups and things for agave, it's disparate. And so having to keep the same tone and keep in character in the right way culinarily, like you're saying, that's what makes a film good. That's what makes a bar good.
Yeah.
Having a constant vision. And that, I think it's really shrewd the way you guys are able to execute that.
Yeah, it was very, very gratifying. And the staff did such a good job with their drinks. I was constantly blown away at their ability to take these really obscure ingredients and make it something that was not only palatable but fucking good. Like every drink that we put on that menu, some are better than others. Like they're all not going to be 100%.
Sure, you can't. They all can't be the best.
Right,
that's just not how it goes.
Exactly, but they were all fucking good.
Yeah,
and the menu that they have continued to put out has always really impressed me a lot, especially because it takes such a lot of work on the creative end to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But so that was one of the great things about the bar. But then just to be there on a Friday or a Saturday night at midnight and have the bar be 3 deep, but then you still get that one person who in the middle of all this fucking madness still wants you to be, is still like, hey, I had this mezcal. Can you pour me and my friends 3 different mezcals?
Right.
When they're surrounded by people and still want to engage in the spirit like that in the category is
it's the thread
so awesome.
Of that place.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you can look in the back and there's people playing pool and dancing at the same time. It was a really, really cool place to work.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very
and
vibrant,
it's a huge build. It's a huge space.
Yeah.
So it got incredibly loud, but everybody just seemed to be there to have a really good time, and that's what was. It was during the week. It seemed to be such an educational bar, and then during the weekend, it was just for a place for that people really had an ability to just kind of let loose and enjoy themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what sustained a lot of the success for it as well.
I think so. Yeah,
just the erudite aspect, but also just the convivial aspect.
Yeah,
I'm using these are words of the day. So for
cool.
No, convivial is not. But so. Let's take a moment then to describe the bottle. Obviously, when you come over, and we'll talk about Vago here, which is a really exciting project for you and for me to hear about it as well. Love Judah and the team over there. But we picked or rather you let's say we picked a bottle of Del Maguey, and this is it San Pedro Taviche?
San Pedro Taviche,
Taviche, right? And it is a blend of Tepestate, unpropagated Espadín, and then Tobola, right? And this is 49%, twice distilled in copper. It says slowly distilled in copper, which is great. And this is a very difficult bottle to get, but one that you do in fact have at the Pastry War.
Yeah,
the only
Pastry
place
War
I've seen
was
it on the menu.
Yeah, it was one of the few bars in the country that was fortunate enough to have some sent their way.
Yeah,
so that was definitely one of the gems on the shelf for us.
I got a little splash on my hand and rubbed it, to just kind of spread those oils, and I smelled it, and it was immersed in this like deep clay and deep mud, and it's a brilliant bottle. How do you feel about Del Maguey in general? That model.
I mean, that is the prototype, right? Like that set the standard. For the quality of mezcal that you were getting.
Absolutely. How
to do it very sustainably and responsibly. And those guys have been really, really incredible at they've grown so much, and I guess, they just had their 20th anniversary.
Yeah,
right?
It's crazy.
But they still maintain the respect of everybody in the industry, and I think that's been really incredible. I think it takes a lot of work for them. It can't be really easy to kind of to maintain those relationships and still be kind of seen as an icon in the industry.
It's hard because you run the risk always. If you get too big, your core fans will reject you.
Right.
It happened to Green Day. It happened to like many, many bands, right? Like, once you hit a certain point, like people are going to start being, well, fuck you. You're not true to the cause anymore. But to your point, I think it's been incredibly true to the cause the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hear, like if you ever hear people, you realize that they don't really quite understand what it is that they're talking about with really anything, really. But, but I mean, like knowing the people who have been so involved with the brand, not only like Ron but also like Misty and Ryan Fitzgerald and things like that. Like they're all so just salty to the other people, but then B, so passionate about the people that they've met along the way.
It's you can't help but catch that enthusiasm.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons I love that brand so much is because you meet people like Misty and Ryan that are so connected to the places that they've been and the people that they feel like they've represented. That's definitely like kind of an inspiration that I want to follow. Is to make sure that I like having met Aquilino and having met Del Rey, and spent a week and a half with each one of them. It's so important to maintain my commitment. Honestly, I don't know if my commitment to the brand is bigger or just having met them and really like make sure that I represent them well as I'm an extension of them.
Right.
Is incredibly important.
Well, so before we talk about Aquilino, who's my favorite action store
ever,
totally is. How do you feel about this particular blend, the Tobola Tepestate?
This bottling is honestly one of my favorite mezcals that I had at the back bar at Pastry War.
What elements do you like about in this particular?
It's rare that I go all in on something like this, but Tepestate without a doubt is one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite particular varietal. It's got Tobola in there, and everybody loses their shit about Tobola, understandably, But honestly, for me, I veer towards the flavors that tend to be in like a Tepestate.
I totally agree.
I
feel like Tobola is Elton John. Okay, Tepestate, Billy Joel.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
See,
absolutely.
That's the thing. Like Elton John, kind of lighter, not as deep, not as like sordid at times, and self-deprecating. Billy Joel, fucking everything, dude. All the grit, all the seasons, all the emotions.
Yep.
You heard it here.
So well put. That is the perfect analogy. It's not rare that I get one, but absolutely.
I love it. I fucking love it.
Yeah, man. And it's like there's so much to think about there. And, Tobola, it's beautiful and it's well done. And it's just always crafted really well. For the most part, crafted really well.
Yeah.
Again, I love Del Maguey's, for example. But it just seems to be the same kind of ballpark every time. Whereas Tepestate, there's just so much there to think about. I feel like
it challenges you and it's uncomfortable at times. Drinking it.
Yeah,
but it ultimately is beautiful. There's just a fight back and forth with these flavors. But it is a wonderful bottling. I'm really glad to be able to share this with anybody. The Mezcal Maestro.
Like I was so like that's awesome that you have that, man.
I'm stoked I was able to find a bottle of it.
That's kick-ass. That was definitely not what I was expecting to pull off the shelf this evening.
Well, all right. Here we go. We're doing good. So how'd you get introduced to Judah and the like before taking the gig at Vago?
I actually met Judah at Fino, man.
Did you?
I think it was his first market trip.
Was it the thing he did at the Draft House with Bill? That's when I first met him. He did a drink tank.
I think he was there for it, if I recall.
Yeah.
But he had just stepped into Fino with John.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, because Texas was their first market.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then John, I think John was on here not
Absolutely.
terribly long
John
ago,
Garrett,
right?
everybody. Yeah, wonderful interview with the dude.
Yeah, I think
Great guy.
he helped Judah get in contact with people in various markets.
Yeah.
So he was really a huge part of our expansion, and that's why we love that guy so much, and we owe him a lot. Me personally, also, like, having gone from my different stops, this is probably the only nice thing I'll ever say about John Garrett. But but yeah, he's been great in helping me, get in front of people like Judah and kind of keeping the conversation going for us and things like that. So
John has been the great facilitator.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
He really is. Like,
absolutely.
I wouldn't have met Judah without John, without Bill. I wouldn't have met David Suro. Wouldn't have met Jake Lustig. Any of these guys,
wouldn't have met David Suro, who I talk to on like a weekly basis.
Hopefully he'll be in town next month. Yeah. So I'll have him on.
Oh, that'd be great.
Which would be killer.
And that's awesome.
Seems like such a wonderful dude. But John is at the center of this stuff. And
everybody. Yeah.
It's
so incredible,
strange,
man.
but he's just there, like on the sidelines, just doing it, But you hit it off with Judah?
Yeah, hit it off with Judah. Judah was actually likes sherry quite a bit. So he came in and just drank a shitload of sherry. And then got to know him really well, having worked at Peshawar.
Yeah.
And then
you guys had that special bottling.
Yeah, it was incredible, man.
It's not on Barra, but
it's Cobre Barro, so it's distilled in clay by Acalino.
Yeah.
But then it was aged in the black canteras in the clay.
The ones that
vessels.
he found, right? Like, is it Acalino's grandfather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Acalino's grandfather. That had not been used for...
On Cantara. Is that what the word is? Cantara?
Yep, Cantaro.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's these large clay vessels, the black Oaxacan clay. And they kind of like refurbish them, clean them out, season them with water, because obviously it's porous, right? So you don't want to take on too much liquid.
Right.
So they soaked them with water for like a week, and then they filled them with mezcal and kept them for 31 days. And that was a blend of quiche, espadín, and tepestate, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. The only people. I mean, think about that. Who gets their own fucking bottle?
It was that was unreal. 101 liters, and I think it's done now. It was 101 liter bottling, and I'm pretty sure not too long after I left, Peshawar poured their last of it.
Killed it. Wow.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
People loved it too, man. It was incredible. It was a beautiful mezcal.
I've got one
awesome.
that he gave me in on Cantara. And I can't remember what it's like. It might be a tepestate or a tobalab blend, but it's something about that. Yeah, it's something about that clay. It's just insanely beautiful. I don't know what it does. Again, going back to our original kind of point, like, I don't know what happens, but there's some magic that happens.
And I'm not gonna question that. There's some things that I'm okay not asking why.
Yeah, I'm not having faith in it. I'm just blind faith. It just knows it's gonna taste good, after time. But so when did the opportunity, because I know Houston was down there for a while, and he transitioned.
Houston was there for 6 months, and then I actually went back in almost a year ago now. I think it was in March that I went and hung out with Bobby. Bobby had me go down there for a few days.
To Oaxaca.
Oaxaca City. Hang out with Judah, hang out with Houston for a few days, just kind of learn about the process and see these places. Because that was one of the most remarkable things about Peshawar, is that, like, I think 90% of the labels that are on the back bar, 90% of the labels that are on the back bar, somebody, whether it's Alba, myself, one of the other staff members, Bobby, has been to the distillery or the palenque, whichever one it is. So there's a real connection between that bar and just about every bottle that's on the back bar. But so he sent me down there, and that was when I first really got to spend some time with Judah. That was the first time I met Acalino. Were
you enamored with him too? Because I met the dude, and I'm like, you're like a living superstar.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but he just is.
I have a pulse. Yes, I was enamored with Acalino. It's impossible not to be.
Right?
Yeah, it's impossible not to be.
God, it's insane.
Both of them. Yeah. Like Theo Rey as well. Did you go to Sola?
I didn't actually get to meet him.
Theo Rey is like not completely opposite, but just a completely different character. He's very, very soft spoken. He almost murmurs when he speaks.
No
He
kidding.
kind of always looks off to the side as he's speaking, because it just seems like he's almost like like a mystic almost in the way that he talks. Yeah, it's something really, really, like, just listening to him talk. It's beautiful. Both of them are just very, very charismatic
they're
people.
charismatic.
Yeah,
and it comes through. I mean, I don't want to beat that point too much, but Vago mezcal is magical in that sense, and that those personalities shine through.
Especially once you've actually made the connection and met them, you definitely see. Because like even if you hadn't, right? Like they're both two very different styles.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Acolinos, totally and within those styles, they both have very different, you know, from bottling to bottling, right?
Yeah.
But it's very identifiable if you put two in front of you.
You can tell,
you know, like this is one person's, somebody else did this one.
Right.
And then once you actually meet them, that really, really comes through in the bottling. Whereas Acolinos for me tend to be a little bit brighter.
Absolutely.
You know,
more pop.
Yeah,
That's
more
right.
pop. Yeah, absolutely. And then Tío Reyes tend to be a little bit more brooding, a little bit kind of more savory.
Analog.
Yeah. Very much
That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
Yep.
Not that they're less refined, but they're more garagey. You know what I mean? I always go back to music because it's the only thing I understand, basically.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, but that's what happens when you're working with clay and copper, though, too. Anyway.
Yeah,
you know, it's
I would say
different.
so.
It's chemically, it's different.
You know, but then like you go there and you think of like Tío Reyes mezcals as being a little bit like more garagey.
Yeah.
Right. But he is one of the most fastidiously clean people in the way that they produce their mezcal that I've ever like. You're not even allowed to, like, I was there for a little over a week. You're not allowed to touch any agave that has not been distilled.
Wow.
Like, unless you've washed your hands. So that, like, obviously like, there's certain mezcal that doesn't pass inspection, right? Like whether the acids are too high or something.
Sure.
So what he'll actually do is he'll keep that, and then he'll also he'll keep it in bottles just to use as a cleaning solution.
As a cleaner, yeah.
Yeah, so that you're always cleaning your hands. It doesn't matter if you just wash them, especially if you just wash them. You don't want to get perfumey aromas or anything.
Right, nothing
So
unnatural.
if you're touching anything that hasn't been distilled yet, fermenting, whatever, you have to wash your hands all the time. And he's just like really, really fastidious about like keeping everything covered. He does native fermentation, right? Like ambient yeast.
Yes.
But it's covered the entire time.
No kidding. What's he cover with?
He's got just some like thick plastic that he covers with. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he's very, very diligent about the way that he does things. And for example, like after you leave, after you take them out of roast, you leave them to cool, right? And some people will leave them out on the order of weeks while they start to like mold and fungus, right?
Yeah.
And most producers will leave that on. But he says, and we haven't submitted samples to test to really see the difference. But it's kind of a general consensus that I've heard that will give you acids in your mezcal.
Yes, absolutely.
So he actually cuts it all out. Like he doesn't include any. He will cut that part of the piña out.
Amazing. And that's why it's so there's something that happens, you know, and this is my opinion and from some experience of having distilled agave and doing the ferment, you know, up here in Austin. But so if you leave it out, there is this, and it's a very prominent, ubiquitous smell in Oaxaca, that cheesy kind of
acidic.
Spent, right. And so that happens for a lot of things after, like you're saying, 48 hours, and you start getting that smell. And I almost feel like it's lactic acid or something. I can't prove what it is.
Yeah, that would be my assumption.
But that's what it smells like.
Yeah.
And you never get that cheesiness in Tío Reyes.
Nope.
Mezcals ever. But you find it, the Papalome, the Del Maguey that's in that, the Tepextate, there's that cheesy funk.
They're Arauqueño as well. I kind of find
absolutely, that. Totally. And that's what that, in my experience, and maybe...
And not that it's a bad thing, because most of the raicillas that I've had, and like Bacanoras from up north, they have that same like acidic quality. And I love all of those. I love that acidic totally quality.
But there's something refined and just slightly less rugged about Tío Reyes, and now knowing that he does that and doesn't let the acid take over and doesn't let that fungus or mold take over, makes perfect sense now.
And you know what's so incredible about the guy is like he's so humble. He doesn't say that it's the right way.
Right.
He just says that it's the way that he does
his
it.
way.
Yeah.
But that's brilliant.
Yeah,
I love that because that's his vision. It's his artistic vision. You know,
that's just the way. Yeah, that's just the way that he's learned it. And that's the way he wants it to be, and that's just. But then he'll like his brother makes mezcal, and he's like, I don't know if my brother does this, or I don't know if the people up the road and Solo do it. But he's like he every single time I'd ask him why he did anything, he follows it up with, but everybody does it their own way. Yeah, it's just such a humble.
That's so
person.
great.
It's remarkable.
It's absolutely because there is no right way because it's colloquialisms and the flavor.
Oh my god! It totally
is,
down to the language.
Yeah, absolutely. Tepextate, tepestate. I can't even. I mean, fuck, man. I don't even know Spanish, but I could see huge differences.
Even when you do, it doesn't matter if you do. It's like there's so many indigenous languages. Just in Oaxaca, it's ridiculous.
It's insane. So when did you officially start with Vago then?
I went down. So I stopped Pastry War in the middle of September. I had a couple weeks off, and then I went down on October 5th
Of 15?
of 2015.
2015.
Yeah, sorry. This past October, I flew down on October 5th, and I came back on November 11th or the 14th or something like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And thus it was born.
Yeah, thus it was born, man. I spent 6 weeks down there. I spent a couple weeks in the hills and then a couple weeks down in the city, and it was incredible. I spent a week with Acalino. My main focus while I was there was helping out with everything up to distillation.
Sure.
So
you let him do it, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, it wasn't even him as much. It was his son who was keeping an eye on the stills while I was there, and he was doing everything. We were cleaning, we were fermenting, we built a roast. We cleaned like 3 tons of quiche.
Wow.
Which was incredible.
Yeah.
One of the most kind of tedious things I've done. Like, it's incredible. Like, they harvest it and then you chip away at bark for. I think it took us 2 days to do 3 tons.
It's so stocky, right? Because you guys use the.
Yep.
Yeah.
And quiche tends to be one of the stocky, like more stock. Because there's so many different sub varieties of the Karwinski family,
right,
whether it's
right.
Barril, Madre Quiche,
By-quiche.
by quiche. But quiche tends to be one of the ones that has more stock to piña kind of ratio, if you think.
Yeah.
Like a barril tends to be a little bit squatter, fatter, larger piña. Madre quiche, the same thing. But Tepestate seems to have more stock compared to the piña. So you're just chipping away at this bark for two and a half days.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really, really intense. It was a lot of, like, I think I woke up the second night at like 3:30 in the morning, and I just couldn't go back to sleep because my arm was just completely inflamed from just chipping away
burning,
at machete. Yeah, it was brutal.
But that you'll never forget that. No one can take that away from you.
Yeah, and like I knew, like, talking to people, and that was one of the, like, if anybody ever wants, then please let us know. We'll be happy to take you up and hang out for a few days if you really, really want to get a grip for like what really goes into this process. I'd always talk to people about quiche before and tell them how it can be kind of time intense, but having been there and done it for 2 days was just remarkable.
So now you totally
to me.
get it.
Oh yeah, and no, I don't totally get it because
you've had a view into it.
I feel closer to it now.
Yeah,
I feel closer to it, but I think I came back with more questions than I went down with for sure.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's definitely good.
Yeah.
So you've got, man, I've been following. I love the Vago stuff, and I've had a wonderful time. And actually, I'm going to boast about this, but had an opportunity to proof some of the Tepestate that came out with Judah when I was out there, and that was an amazing thing because I know how to proof, obviously operating a distillery and stuff. So seeing how they do it and being there with the guy from Comarcon or what's the organization?
Yeah,
Comarcon. Yeah, and so it was an amazing insight into the process, and I didn't even fucking shave the espadine or like any of that, but it's an amazing operation going on down there, and I think it's so cool that it's just a dude, because no matter how awesome and smart he is, he's a dude. He's a normal dude. He's a surfer, man.
He hasn't been doing this for been doing this for forever, just since he met Valentina.
But he gets it, and he's got good tastes, which is totally, that's the key. Not thinking about mezcal with your balls, but thinking about it with your heart.
Yeah, and I think, and that's one of the reasons that I love this particular brand so much, is because it matters to him because it really, literally is his family.
Yeah,
like there's a couple viewers, like it's a little bit more of a direct chain between when we're talking to people at the bar and Acalino in Yegale.
Right.
And really learning that and meeting Acalino's son and both of his sons and having spent time in Valentina, Judah's wife's, home and met their daughter and everything. There's literally no other brand that I'd rather be working for. I think it's the only job opportunity I would have possibly left being at Peshawar for was to work for this model and this system. And this group, and that's just it's a different model than everybody else, and that's not necessarily that it's better, but for me, it just it's different. But for me, it just makes me feel so much more connected.
And it's amazing, and all those products take you there, and they take you to the people, and I think that's the transportative quality to mezcal, and I've mentioned that before, and I will fucking die by that because it is absolutely transportative. But
absolutely,
it totally is. But I had one question, so. I followed kind of all the stuff you guys did. You're doing the Tepestate, which is newer. There's another quiche coming out that I think Judah had in San Antonio. But there seemingly, is there another Palenque that you guys are adding into the collection? I don't know if Judas talked about it yet, but the labels are out there for it.
Yeah, he's posted some pictures.
Okay.
We are adding a producer, Emigdio Jarquin, who's another just incredibly noble soul. Like meeting him, he's such a nice guy, and again, so soft spoken. It's like none of our mezcaleros seem to be very boisterous or very loud for some reason. They're all just very quiet, soft spoken.
Like, dude, they're the silent, strong type.
Yeah, they're really, really like wonderful people to be around. But I was fortunate enough to meet him and go to his palenque a couple times. So he's in Miahuatlan, which is on the road out to Sol de Vega.
Okay.
Or excuse me, out to Candelaria Yegole. It's kind of more towards. So if you're looking at Oaxaca, like bird's eye view, right? Oaxaca City, Candelaria Yegole is to the southeast, and Sol de Vega is to the southwest.
Gotcha.
And then Miahuatlan de Porfirio Diaz kind of falls right in the middle.
Okay.
So it's kind of directly south of Oaxaca City. But generations back, both Tío Rey and Acalino's families actually lived in Miahuatlan, which is one of the reasons that we're so excited to bring on a producer from Miahuatlan, that it's kind of like closing that circle and going one chapter back into the history of the families that are part of our brand.
When are those hitting the States?
We're not really sure yet. When I was there, we had brought to proof his first batch of Espadin that was going to hit.
Is he clay or copper guy?
He actually does it's all copper, but the method is a little bit different, which was completely new to me. It's called a refrescador, and I'm actually kind of in the middle of writing something about it for the website. But it's basically like a refresher system. So you have your boiler in the bottom right of the still, and then there's a second chamber up on top, and that's all copper. But it's enclosed in a stainless steel cylinder that gets filled with water.
So
it condenses once in the still.
Okay. Because of the stainless, there's something runs between the stainless and the copper. Is it copper inside of the stainless?
There's copper inside
and stainless
surrounded by water,
okay,
which is held in a stainless steel cylinder.
Got it. So it's almost like a condenser. It ultimately is.
Yeah, it ultimately is, and that's how he distills.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
twice distilled?
No, it actually comes out off the still because of the extra condensation.
Yeah.
It comes out at like
bottle proof?
Yeah, it comes out at bottle proof.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And so that's different because the clay is double that Tío does, and Acalino is double in copper. So there is a Resilla, the Tigre de Jalisco, the
which
Venenosa.
Is that the orange or the red label?
Orange.
The orange, yeah.
And that is a single distillation.
Yes.
And it brings up all the way to...
Which I had never really understood. And I haven't seen those palenques that operate, or pinatas or whatever, but I
couldn't believe
would have
it.
to
assume geez, there must be so much surface area and so much condensation, or rather recondensation.
And maybe that is how they do it, but that is one way that I've seen to get bottle proof from a single distillation.
And it's cool because you're going to get more funk just inherently because you're not refining it as much.
Yeah, and that actually, like, we brought down that batch of Espadin to proof, and for me that was such, like, I don't know how if Judah went through. Does he explain like the proof, like how we bring them down?
There's a specific secret too that I'm not
that we
at liberty to say, but
so we use it was really remarkable for me to see water and try like the pure distilled water from each place.
Yes.
And then have that come out like almost texturally. Like so much of mezcal isn't for me, and I think we were talking about it earlier, so much of mezcal for me isn't necessarily flavor as it is texture. And mouthfeel.
Yeah.
And how it makes your palate feel versus what you taste. And I think the water really, really influences that.
Well, I learned a trick from him, that any of the water that we use to proof our sotol, we redistilled it from the same pot still. So that it had the same elements and the same kind of pH, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that's brilliant because it transforms water that may be dissimilar in chemical quality, and then it brings it to a very similar language, and then thus it's better to proof with that.
Yeah, it was remarkable to see when we were doing that in Miahuatlan. So like to try the water, it's very chalky, very, very minerally.
Yeah.
And to see that come out, like this minerality in the mezcal, to try it without having been to proof and then trying it afterwards.
Yeah.
It was remarkable to see that texture still come out in the mezcal, and like it seemed to almost give like this sesame kind of pumpkin oil kind of aroma on the finish that made it much more savory, but like really, really rich and just unctuous. It was really, really.
That's an amazing third leg to the product line too.
Yeah,
totally different.
So
techniques.
unique. Yeah, different techniques and such a different style than any of our other two than either one of our other two producers.
That's amazing.
It's really, really incredible.
So you're gonna, I think we talked about it. You're recently engaged. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You guys, you and Rachel, no date set yet, which isn't really the important part, but do you see yourself changing and becoming the family man once you settle down, so to speak? I mean, is this going to still work traveling around like this?
Well, I mean, I don't really know. Like, we haven't really discussed it that aspect of it too much. So we got engaged on November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
And you waited to tell everybody, apparently.
Yeah. Well, she did this thing that I didn't really understand, which was her friend waited to tell her, so she was going to wait to tell her friend. So
I gotcha, okay.
We couldn't talk about it for a while, but yeah, we got engaged. I think it was November 1st. It was in Oaxaca. And we decided that we're going to wait a couple years. So it'll be November of 2017.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And a big part, like, she just moved to Houston. She just got a job at an awesome wine bar called Camerata.
Yeah.
Which is on Westheimer, which is like one of the best wine bars in the city, if not the best. So
amazing.
It's been a pretty big transition year for us, and we want to move soon. So we're going to kind of give ourselves some time to settle into new roles.
Yeah.
So
you're not there yet?
No, not really.
Day at a time.
Yeah, we still got a lot, and it's good. It would be hard with me traveling so much, and that's my employer mandated that I'm not allowed to get to that point yet, because that's why I got the job.
It is, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why he went back to California to like spend some family time.
Well, yeah, yeah, and same thing with his partner Dylan, his business partner, who he's known forever. He also has a family in Colorado, which is why they were hunting for somebody who did not have that home calling to them as much as they did. So
the jet setter that they can send on the road.
Yeah.
Go fetch all the brown M&Ms.
Go freeze their ass off in Providence and Seattle in December.
And deal with perilous bouts of car crashes and mezcal-fueled entertainment, I imagine.
Very, very much so entertaining.
How are you liking it so far?
It's been incredible, man. Like, I can't say I can't say enough. Like, my time spent in Oaxaca was unreal for me. Like, so much of this is a cultural thing that I feel like when I was younger I had, and then growing up in Tucson and going to the schools that I went to and my college experience, I didn't really I didn't realize how important it was. Mm-hmm. But then getting older and leaving Tucson and not having that, to be able to have this job that's kind of bringing me back to it when I'm older and a little bit smarter. I wouldn't dare say wiser, because I'm only 32, but definitely smarter.
You're wiser, come on.
But it definitely makes me appreciate it more, and it's been so important, like, to be able to share that, and so much of what I talk about to people is cultural, because and that's why I think about, like, being like a brand ambassador and things like that. Mm-hmm. It's not like working for like Campari or something, and like just doing for people doing laybacks, which is fun, and I love Campari. I have it all the time when I go out, just not to pick on it. But for me, it's not necessarily about going out and like doing all these happy hours and things like that. Like, I really want to be able to talk to people about, like, I posted something the other day about like the printmaking scene that's in Oaxaca City,
it's beautiful.
Right? Like, mezcal, I think, can be such a vehicle for people to see this culture that isn't really known, especially here in Texas and Arizona, like along the borderlands, right? Like, you usually just think about like northern Mexico and things like that, and once you get into the indigenous population and like some of the art and things like that, like
things that you wouldn't hear about unless you're there.
Yeah, it's like such an incredible, and not everybody can go to Oaxaca, right, and see it,
right.
And so I think it's really important. That's one of the things.
Although everybody should try.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
try to go.
Yeah, definitely try and go down.
Quick flight out of Houston.
Hell yeah, man! Aeromexico, direct flight, no problem.
Seriously.
But yeah, like I think it's so. I want to see all the mezcal brands, and like mezcal as a category, use the product as an opportunity to kind of share the culture with people, because there's so many different parts of it, whether it be culinary, artistic, historical, whatever.
Historical, that history museum in Oaxaca is amazing.
Oh yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, like there's an unbelievable number of like really cool tiny free museums in Oaxaca City.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's a textile museum, they have like a stamp museum.
No
there.
shit.
Yeah, they have like a huge stamp museum, which just opened up.
Very rich, but it's very rich culture. It's absolutely just literally colorful.
Yep.
It's an amazing spot.
To be able to travel the country now and be able to do that has been, and everybody meeting the people, like the people who love agave, really, really like. I feel like either people
Star Trek,
don't really
dude.
like it. Yeah, Star Trek,
It is.
man.
People are dedicated.
Nobody
They'll go
is
to
like, oh, Star Trek's okay. They either
exhibitions.
love it or
That's right.
they're like,
no one's
nerds.
lukewarm to it.
Yeah.
Either they don't like it or they love it.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with mezcal.
And everybody that I've met has like been so fucking cool and like rad and just love talking about
It's
it.
the cool kids club.
Yeah.
Ironically. I mean, it's not, but it is. Like, everybody that likes mezcal, you know that you've got a brother in arms if you can drink tepestate together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No shit.
There's something
you know?
about that. It's like a frat in a sense without all the butt chugging. I just want to keep saying butt chugging. I like that word as a verb.
Man,
You went to Arizona.
If you want to butt chug, Mike, all you have to do is just tell me, man. We'll butt chug.
I'd just rather drink it normal. It's so delicious. There may be some other things that I wouldn't want to take, but
but it's been incredible, man. Like, I was in Seattle recently and just talking to these girls, and just explaining to them, like, that entire it's not a life cycle. You have the entire life of the plant
right
in the bottle.
That's right.
Like, it's done, and people don't realize that. You make mezcal, the plant's done.
Yeah,
right. It doesn't grow back.
Absolutely.
It's not like grapes. It's not like whiskey.
It's not
like wheat. It's not
a single grain.
Yeah.
It's the whole plant.
It's not a grass. It's not cane. Right. It's done. And people
gave its life to you.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned the other day.
Yeah. It's the entire life of that plant in a bottling, which is remarkable. And I don't know, it's almost impossible for me to not feel something, for lack of a better word, spiritual about it.
I agree.
And
Absolutely.
like you say, it's so transportive. It really, really is. There's no other spirit that I think that really does that the way that mezcal does. Maybe
there's not.
Maybe some rums or something, some agricoles. Maybe
But not in the same.
Or not even fruit brandies necessarily, but like mezcal itself is just such a unique.
Do you ever get afraid that these amazing sips and these amazing spirits that are made will catch on to a point in which we're not going to be able to enjoy it anymore?
Yes. Sorry, I don't know why I thought about it. Yes, absolutely, I am. And that's one of the things I really want to network with people and have maybe the industry itself kind of work together cohesively to kind of promote that. And I mean, there's there's eight states that can make mezcal legally, but over 20 have a history of it.
Yeah.
And there's so many little palenques even within those 8 states. But so many of them just don't have access because they can't get inspector to come, get their samples. There's Oaxaca had such. I meant to look at the exact number. I think Oaxaca last year was responsible for 90% of the mezcal.
Wow.
That came to market.
Yeah.
It's either I can't remember. It's either 90% of the mezcal that was sold was from Oaxaca. 75% of which was Espadín, or 75% came from Oaxaca, and 90% of which was Espadín.
Got it. Yeah,
it's on the CRM website. Go check it out. But yeah, it's so much of the burden is on the state of Oaxaca to kind of hold up the entire industry. Mm-hmm. It really, really is kind of scary when you look at it as a big picture sense, and like trying to get market access for people in other states, right? For producers in other states to kind of shoulder some of that burden. Rey Campero's been great. Real Minero's been great. We've been great. We've all planted a lot of plants in the last couple of years.
Right.
Almost all of ours were from seed, which has been incredible. People are really starting to look at it in the bigger scheme of things. There's a lot of prominent academics who are kind of getting a little bit more popular. Ana Valenzuela has been a great one from Guadalajara, but I think she lives in Belgium now. But there's Sarah Bowen from North Carolina State, who's a really, really great academic who did a lot of her graduate research on kind of like the denomination of origin and how that really affects the people who live under it and how that affects the market and the industry as a whole. So there's a lot of like really good academic papers that are being written now that I think if people, and we try and post them as much as we can, but if people actually go out and look and kind of read about where the industry is and how the way that the market is structured, how it affects the plant itself, agave as a whole, and the mezcal industry. I think if people just kind of make themselves aware of that, it makes me very optimistic for the sustainability of the category. But it's going to take a lot of work and like a lot of people working together to really promote that approach to mezcal.
Right.
Well,
it's any opportunity I can have to just sit mezcal and talk about it and get to know people. I mean, it's been I got to be honest. Like, I didn't really know much what to think of you, and I think I get that same impression when people just first meet me. They don't really, and that's fine. It's like tight in the bottle. It hasn't had air yet, right?
Yeah.
It hasn't had time to develop. But you're a brilliant dude, and I can't imagine a better person and a more intelligent person, a more academic person being in that position and working with Vago. And
I hope so. I hope I don't get too. I hope I don't make it too dry for people. I still want it to be
it's great, man.
Enjoyable,
and it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And we got to dip into this other special Vago, give that a taste with these mesquite pots. So thanks so much for chatting with me, Francisco.
Thank you, man. It's been a blast.
Well, there we have it. Another wonderful conversation with a brethren of Mezcal. I'm very privileged to get to talk to people like Francisco and get to talk to people that have amazing insights as to the production of Mezcal, the culture. And just recently this week, Francisco posted such a wonderfully academic, eye-opening, and informative article on fermentation as it pertains to Mezcal on the whole, but mostly and specifically how it pertains to Mezcal produced by Vago in Oaxaca. It is one of the best spirits on the planet, hands down. And there is a new Araqueño on Barro that I've yet to try. Lots of amazing things coming out of Vago, and I think that there's an amazing future in this industry, both academically and professionally, for Francisco Terrazas. So thanks again, everybody, for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter what you're sipping, who you're arguing with, how long you've been growing that amazing beard, please keep dancing.